All right, 6 o'clock on the iPhone. Welcome to the regular city council meeting for the city of Jacksonville Beach, Monday, June 17th. Please rise for the invocation followed by the salute to the flag led by Mr. Jeans.
Let us pray. Good and gracious Heavenly Father, as I lift my brother and sister up in prayer, we just want to thank you for providing us for those things that we didn't even realize we needed. And Lord, we also want to just thank you for the blanket of protection that you give us. Oftentimes we don't even realize we need that. And Lord, most of all, we thank you for your love and your provision, the provision of public safety by our first responders and national security by our military. It's all these things we thank you for. In the Master's name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding.
Here.
Councilmember Horn.
Here.
Councilmember Jansen.
Here.
Councilmember Meza.
Here.
Councilmember Sutton.
Here.
Councilmember Wagner.
Here.
Mayor Hoffman.
Here, moving on to approval of minutes, item A.
I move that we approve the minutes from the regular city council meeting held on June 3rd, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B.
I move that we approve the minutes from the city council briefing held on June 10th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Announcements. Ms. Golding.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, I want to let everyone know that Senate Bill 280, the short-term vacation rental bill, has been sent to the governor today. So the clock is ticking, and probably within the next 24 to 48 hours, the governor will either sign it or veto it. I reached out to Representative Michael, and she contacted the governor's office, urging the governor to veto the bill again. And so hopefully he will do that. Our lobbyist did send a stack of letters to the governor's office as well from other municipalities as well as our own. So anyway, just want to thank Representative Michael for all that she's done in support of our community to urge the governor to veto the bill. And you still have time if you haven't emailed the governor and urge him to veto Senate Bill 280. Until he signs it or vetoes it, your voice still can have an impact. Just want to mention that a lot of us were at the Beach Bowl opening, and it was wonderful to see Beach Bowl open again, and it's an amazing place. I hope everybody takes an opportunity to go out there and check it out. Also want to mention that we have Juneteenth coming up this Wednesday, June 19th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Rhoda L. Martin Cultural Heritage Center. Encourage you to go out to participate in that as well. Want to remind everyone that we have fireworks on July 4th because we don't have any city council meetings between now and then. And I wanted to let everyone know, I looked at the tide chart, and high tide is at 8 p.m. that night. Fireworks are at 9 p.m. So I just want to mention that I have very significant concerns about our dunes because we have a lot of problems right now with people getting in our dunes. So I just want to put this out there that if there's anything that the city can do between now and July 4th to protect our dunes, I hope we will do that. Then also I urge anyone who does come out to the beach for July 4th to leave our beach clean, dark, and flat because that's important for our sea turtles still. And speaking of sea turtles, the Beaches Sea Turtle Patrol is hosting a beach cleanup July 5th, the day after July 4th. And that will be from 7 to 9 a.m. at the Beach Boulevard access and the 8th Avenue North access The Beach Sea Turtle Patrol will be providing bags and gloves, and you just need to come out and help pick up the trash that we know will be out on the beach after July 4th. Then also want to mention that Beaches Watch is hosting the annual police panel with our 3 beach police chiefs. All 3 Atlantic Beach, Jacks Beach, and Neptune Beach chiefs are participating, and they will be discussing, and that is, Wednesday, July 10th at 7 o'clock at the Beaches Branch Library. It's always a timely meeting because it's after July 4th, and it's a great opportunity for all 3 police departments to talk about July 4th, how things went. They'll also talk about Memorial Day, crime stats for each of our communities, staffing updates, department needs, things like that. Again, I would encourage you to come out for that one as well. It's a great opportunity to hear from our police chiefs and hear about what's going on in our community with regard to public safety, and that is Wednesday, July 10th, 7 p.m., Beaches Branch Library. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowling. Mr. Jansen?
Yes, I have several things tonight as well. Just got back from South Florida for the Florida Municipal Loan Council and the Florida Municipal Investment Trust as the trustee. And here to report that the trust is doing very, very well. In fact, they voted to increase their capability of loaning up to $300 million. And so I think that the Chino Creek CDD is probably going to be looking at that. That's Universal Studios, if anybody doesn't know it by the other name. Also, I attended the nominating committee as a new member there, and we have 4 candidates for second vice president for the Florida League of Cities, and that selection will be made in the annual conference in August. Then to catch you up on the pension meeting, I don't know if anybody was able to talk about our annual pension meeting, but we had our big meeting, the annual one. We haven't quarterly, but the annual big meeting was last couple weeks ago. Happy to report that we beat 87% of all public pension funds throughout the, I don't know if that's state or nation, but either way, it's really good. We also approved another alternative asset class, though it's not funded right now. It's just another avenue that if we want to invest in, if it's another avenue for investments or diversification of investments, should we need it. I don't think we're going to be needing it anytime real soon, but we have it there. And then lastly, but not leastly, if anybody's been watching the news on the Duval County Public Schools Sales Surtax Oversight Committee, the chair stepped down due to all the, what he called shenanigans happening with the master facilities plan, the closing of schools and the merging of schools and that type of thing. He was concerned about some transparency issues that were happening there. So in the last meeting, which was a specialized meeting that was put on the agenda, we selected a new chair, which was Lawrence Dennis, who's on the School Board District 1, and I was selected as the vice chair for that committee. I'm happy to take that role as I continue the fight to keep our local schools open the way they should be. And furthermore, the Duval County Public Schools has created a Master Facilities Plan Community Focus Group, and I was also selected to chair on that group as well, representing Fletcher, Seabreeze, and San Pablo. Those meetings will be coming up in the next few months, and as those happen, I'll report back to you as to what's going on with those meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen. Thank you for your service on those various committees and boards. His last city council announcement as a single man. Congratulations, Fernando, on your upcoming nuptials. Congratulations to you and Helen. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is the last one. Happy, next time I'll be married and happy. Couple announcements. Beach Bowl is open today. I went on Friday as well with some of my colleagues here. They definitely invested a lot of money into this building. It's very attention to detail oriented. If you haven't been, I recommend you do go. They have great specials throughout the day and night. And just the lanes, they're all named after our avenues. 6th Avenue North and now 6th Avenue South. So I think it's pretty cool. So if you haven't been, please do so. The second thing,
us folks that live at the beach, we know that the beaches are being nourished with the dunes. For the most part, all of us, we respect the dunes, but there's a lot of people that are going onto the dunes. And to piggyback on what my colleague, Councilmember Golden said, with 4th of July coming up and it being a high tide, I do encourage, if you see anyone, politely educate or just let people know that the dunes are to be off limits and they're to be protected because they protect the coastlines. That is it.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. I will echo, Beach Bowl is open. It is amazing. People have stopped asking me when it's opening, so that's a great development in my day-to-day life. Is the Navy Band coming on the 4th of July? Am I making that up? Maybe, okay. Jason looks confused.
Yeah, I think so, Mayor. I'm not sure, but I'll find out.
Okay, so we think the Navy Band may be coming, which would be at the Seawalk Pavilion. We will make sure to announce that if it is in fact the case. So keep an eye out for that. The end of election qualifying was on Friday the 14th at noon. So congratulations to John Wagner, who was elected. So 2 more years. Congratulations, sir. Thank you for your service to our city. And congratulated Fernando, and I think that is it. So we will move on to courtesy of the floor to visitors, starting with Barbara Bauer. Come on up. You will have 3 minutes if you start with your name and address to address the council.
Barbara Bauer, 604 13th Avenue South. My husband and I retired here 14 years ago, and we chose Jack's Beach because at the time it was still a not too built up community. It wasn't a big tourist destination, and it had a really small town feel to it. It had inexpensive airfare back home for visiting, which unfortunately no longer exists. It had an inexpensive trolley that went up and down A1A for easy access to shopping and festivals, so we wouldn't have the hassle of parking. Sadly, that is also gone. And there were lots of available parking in the end zone during the week, and even on weekends and holidays, it was pretty easy to find parking on the side streets. Sadly, that is gone, what with all the new construction of homes with only 1 garages, and construction crews using entire parking lots for staging areas for 1 or 2 years at a time. But more importantly, the end zone of my street, which is 13th Avenue South, had a ramp rather than steps for the walkover. And that was actually the deciding factor when we bought our house, because even at that time I had trouble walking and I knew a ramp would be much easier for me. And now that is gone too. When the city built the new walkover, you replaced the ramp with steps. When it was first completed, I called and asked why, and I was told the old ramp was no longer ADA compliant. Maybe, maybe not, I really don't know, but nevertheless it was a ramp and I could access it. The steps were so steep on the ocean side coming up that I called and complained about them because I never could even go up and down them, especially carrying chairs, umbrellas, and all that beach stuff. And I know of 2 other people on my street who are elderly also that complained about the steepness of the steps. Most of the people I saw going over our little section of the beach were not even using that walkway you built. We always had a little access path to the right of the walkway, and that's what most people were using once the steps were put up there. My daughter even brought me one of those beach carts so we could load up all the stuff and get to the beach, because I obviously couldn't cart it over the steps now that I lost the ramp. And it was much easier to do that than try to find parking. And that went on for a while, and then about 3 weeks ago we went out of town, and when I came back we walked down to the beach with my little cart, and there was a huge mountain of sand that was now covering the little path. They were not really the dunes, because the dunes were always to the left, so it's not the dunes, and the path was never on the dunes. So I couldn't get up, I couldn't get to the beach, and then I noticed that whoever put the sand there, they covered most of those steep steps that were on the ocean side. There's only like 6 of them left. So I don't know if that was just done on purpose or shoddy workmanship, but it was my understanding that that walkover cost over $108,000. And why you would build that with steep steps that nobody could use and then push a bunch of sand against it is just beyond me. So I don't know what's going on with there. But anyway, so since our end zone had a ramp for accessibility and it no longer is accessible, I would like the city to either replace the walkway with another ramp or put that little pathway back. And just to be clear, that path has been there for 14 years, so it was never interfering with the dunes, and it withstood 2 beach renourishments. I don't know why they took it away at this point. And while I'm here, I requested this last year. I would like to get our bicycle rack back too, because people are tying up the bicycles all over the pillars to this lovely walkover that hardly anybody uses.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer.
Thank you.
James Rourke.
James Rourke, 1/3 Avenue South. My topic was, I basically call 3rd Avenue South the portal. On every day of shooting that has occurred in Jacksonville Beach, you could see the turmoil on our street, which is not represented by police or looking at the bus stop or cameras. If you had it, you probably would have seen the people who had shot somebody, because that is where they came from and it's where they go. And make it clear, the bus stop is part of it, Charlie's is part of it, the free parking. We have great crowds of people that come on the bus and the families that go directly up our street to the beach and leave. But 20, 30 juvenile kids between the ages of, 14, and they come by, they're wearing ski masks, walking up our street in the middle, like on those days, so they can't be identified. I sent a picture of a very drunken group of people with girls laying in the middle of one of my neighbor's yards an hour before the last shooting to the mayor in an email. I'm just showing you how bad 3rd Avenue South has become. I hate to say Charlie's still, they may charge for parking 1 out of every 30 days. The kids show up in the morning and they put their car sideways blocking 3 spots. And then people show up in these big vans with 15 kids per car and they all get out and one guy moves his car so they can and they don't go to the beach. They make a hard left turn and head into where you're patrolling and dealing with the issues. And the issues you've had to deal with. And your police have been wonderful. And on great days, I have nothing bad to say about anything that's going on. But if you don't give a little attention to where it's coming from and where they're going from, they don't get off the bus at any other stops. They know where there's no coverage, where they can get off in large groups. They don't have to pay for parking, which is, I hope you're moving the paid parking way past that park up on 5th Street, because I don't care, charge every day of the week, but we have a beautiful town, and 90% of the time, it's a great place to live. But on those days, I say Friday afternoons, Saturday afternoons, and Sunday in the summer and this time, it is where it starts and where it ends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Kevin Brown.
Kevin Brown, 1833 Kings Court. First of all, I want to always thank y'all for the support that you give me with the things that I do in the community, so I'm always grateful for that. We have a $34 million project going on right now. I'm on the beach every morning. People are pounding those dunes. We got to be proactive. That's all I'm asking tonight, is that y'all get together, we get with the operations, signs. I understand we can't, I think we could have, I had a plan. Nobody wanted to hear it, okay? And I think it would be working right now, but it was tabled. But I do think we need signage. I understand if you can't put our PVC pipes out with rope on the beach side, but you can put them on the west side. I have some at my house. I used them up to keep people from walking on the south end. I don't have any supply left yet. I'd be happy to show those guys how to do it. We knocked that beach out after Ian in about 5 days. So it can be done. I did it with a bunch of kids. It can be done. But I'm telling y'all right now, people are walking over those dunes. It is so frustrating to see that every morning. Those things have protected us through several storms. We have all but we know that since Matthew. I can't stress that enough. How many times after Matthew we realized how important that was. Now they're going to start planting soon on the south end. Right now they have flipped. They're coming back to Margaritaville. When that's done, they're going to flip it. They're going to head north. We could be doing some stuff on the south end. Y'all bought signs before. I got people and put them out. We put out over 500 signs in those dunes. I can do it tomorrow. We need to be proactive on this, or we're going to regret it. The 4th of July is going, we've been through this after Irma. We've been through this. People were in those dunes pounding them on the 4th of July. So let's learn from history. Let's learn from our mistakes. I hope y'all can consult with somebody. If y'all don't want to put the signs out, I'll be happy to get my little army together and we can knock it out. So I stress to y'all, please let's be proactive on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Moving on to the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to city manager new business item A. I believe Mr. Fatidis will be giving us a staff update.
Jason Fatidis, Parks and Recreation. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I begin, I do want to confirm that the band will be here on the 4th from 8 to 8:45. So this item, staff worked together with Congressman Rutherford's office to submit a federal grant for the Urban Trails project. The primary basis, I would say, for this application was safe accessibility to schools, and then also another impetus was the connection to the East Coast Greenway. And as a result, 18th Avenue North and parts of First Street North were the primary basis in this application. The application was successful and we were awarded a grant to the tune of approximately $1.2 million. It is a matching grant and we will have 8 years to spend the funds. I will let council know that we've not started any design on any of these corridors or thoughts of construction. They've been off the radar. If council approves this grant tonight, accepting this grant, we will make a concerted effort to reach as many of the community as we can to get their involvement. So we're asking council tonight to approve acceptance of this grant application.
Thank you, Mr. Fatidis. Before we go to public comment, since we will have the band on stage and I would assume a microphone, that might be a good opportunity to make some reminder announcements, since Seawalk Pavilion will probably be a lot of people that are not necessarily from the beaches, to remind them to stay off the dunes right before the fireworks start. Okay, we will go to our public comment cards before we entertain a motion on this item. Kristen Lend.
Good evening, Kristen Wendy, 1888 7th Street North in Jacksonville Beach. My husband and I are here to support the proposed urban trail. We live on segment 13, which runs between 7th Street North and 8th Street North. There's a canal, used to be a ditch, now it's a fancy canal. It runs directly behind our home. We believe that this would be a benefit to our community. It would make our neighborhood more walkable. Right now, our street, 7th Street, does not have sidewalks on it. Routinely, when we are out walking our dog, we have to scoop her up out of the road because somebody comes around the corner on 2 wheels going quite fast. It would be safer for the kids walking to San Pablo Elementary in particular, but also Fletcher Middle School, and then continuing on the Greenway that they are already using to get over to Fletcher High. It would be safer for not only the dog walkers, but parents with strollers, with kids, or parents with strollers with kids and their dogs, which we see lots of. And it will help engender a sense of community. When you see people routinely out on a trail, you say hi, you smile, you get to know one another a little bit, and we just think it would be good for the city. So we encourage all of you to vote to approve the acceptance of these funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy. Bama Israel?
Good evening, and thank you all. I'm Bama Israel. I live on 818 8th Avenue North. I've been a Jax Beach resident since around 1986, but I have recently felt a sharp intake in crime in my neighborhood, and I do not feel safe. I have some neighbors sitting back there that helped me get my fence put back together. It's a 6-foot privacy fence that a dude reached his hand over because I had it locked. I'm on the Ring network, and all of the network is on people stealing, petty theft. So I'm not necessarily opposed to everything involved in the urban trail development, but I'm definitely opposed to not fixing what we have right now. And we have a big problem. I feel like some money needs to be spent on the police department and boosting that up. That trifecta that happened with those 3 shootings, our police department was outnumbered. I figured in my head as a retired school teacher, they were outnumbered by about 6 to 1. And that's why they kept happening over and over again. When that person talked about the people with the mask and stuff, I can testify to people that come up and down our streets on a regular basis. I've called the police department on several times. The speeding is just enormously out of control. It was enormously out of control over 15 years ago. I had a study done by the police department. We most recently just did another one. We can't even walk from one side to the other. The criminals, wherever that track is going to be, is going to place them even closer to a scope, grab, and steal. And that is the problem that I have with it, and the amount of money that's being spent on it, that I feel like could be better spent in other ways, like possibly a speed bump on 8th Avenue North. My ring goes off every 3 minutes with the traffic, back and forth. When y'all talk about July 4th, what is the plan for 8th Avenue North and the traffic on Jax Beach and 8th Avenue North? It's bumper to bumper. Most recently, electronic bike, I have a little fence up, crumbled in 2 different areas. Totally crumbled. $400 for me to fix it. Nobody cares. It's not the neighborhood it used to be. I feel like you aren't listening to us as the people who pay the property taxes down here and voted you into office, that you're supposed to be good stewards of our money. And I'd like for you to add some things to it that would help at least some certain areas other than an asphalt track. Have asthma, and when I think about that asphalt track, I'm not going to be able to breathe. It is destroying, like the other lady said, the feel of our community is not what it used to be. I've already tried to feel like maybe I should just move. Because if you're not going to care, why should I stay? Why should I continue to keep being in the community? And as a school teacher, God bless you for helping us out there, because they need it too.
Thank you, Ms. Israel. Your time is up. Thank you. Bruce Wouters?
Good evening. My name is Bruce Wouters. I live at 126 12th Avenue South. It's a pleasure to address you all, this honorable council, and you, our honorable mayor. I would like to thank Ms. Golding for her efforts on SB 280, which I think will make our community a lot safer. Crime and bad actors are everywhere. And I would like to thank Mr. Jansen for his efforts on our schools. current school teacher, basically. I love our kids, and I like to see their generation be able to live here in a safe community environment. As in regards to Urban Trail, I think it's a wonderful concept for people to be able to get around on their bikes from any part of the beach to any other part. But as you can see, there are 11 east-west trails. This will add to congestion and possibly crime. The bad actors who are in these Airbnbs or come in on buses can access them. And I think with Penman Road going on, with Adventure Landing, with Gonzalez Park condos, I think we could be better served to scale this back and use our resources for more pressing matters. So I trust that you all will do the right thing for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Robert Sherman.
Good evening. My name is Robert Sherman. I live at 1103 15th Avenue North. I've been for you discussing my opposition to the urban trails on two major points. I was going to talk a little bit about opportunistic crime, but some of my neighbors here have already spoken to you about that. There's over 50 years of scientific data that will prove that greater foot traffic means greater crime. And even without an urban trail going down my street, I've had people siphon gas out of my SUV, destroy the locks on the doors of my Accord trying to get into it, and have my dogs chase away somebody who's trying to break into my back gate fence. The Circle K 2 blocks down my road has had 2 armed incidences just since the last time I talked to you where somebody pulled a weapon on somebody there. I don't want more traffic in front of my house. But let's talk about the other crisis that both the City of Jackson and the City of Jax Beach doesn't seem to be prepared for. The heat. It's all over the news. I spoke to you about it. I gave you guys scientific data about it. This is a crisis now, not later. We may be kind of insulated to it because in Florida all the houses have AC, and other cities are way ahead of us because a lot of their houses don't. Like Chicago, there are things that can be done. And also, you talk about all the crime. We're attracting the wrong people. We're not the Riviera. You know, we're not that family friendly. And I have friends who have families and little kids in town here. They don't want to come out for 4th of July and park at my house 10 blocks down because it'll be 95 or higher. And they have to walk all the way down to that beach in that humidity and heat. If you want, and also, we're going to do this grant and we're committing $500,000 a year in tax money to maintain it. $500,000 a year. How about we build, I don't know, maybe a splash feature right in front here by the auditorium where kids can get in the water, or maybe cover the boardwalk some way to provide some shaded spaces. And when we host, but when we talk about all these people, yeah, they're a nuisance, they're going to get on our dunes. They also bring in a lot of money and help fund everything the city does. And we have to be good hosts. So you guys are going to have to provide cooling stations and water, or people are going to fall out. I was at a Jacksonville Jaguars game last September where temperatures on the field were 120 degrees and 36 people got evacuated for heat exhaustion. This is our future. This is not a Burns. This is the new normal. Last year, 2023, saw temperatures that were unprecedented, as did 2022 and 2021, but 23 was a spike, a noticeable spike. You can Google it. It's all over. There's several scientific studies. It's going to just get hotter. We are unprepared. We're tearing down trees to build an urban trail. Are you crazy? We need to plant more trees. And the fact is, they need to be 5 feet or above to provide any shade. We can't wait for saplings to grow. We may not be able to provide enough fresh water for it. We're very lucky. We have the Intercoastal, the St. John's, and the ocean. We have a chance to lead by example and combat, you know, urban heat islands. There are grants, there are funds, even the FLC is involved. You guys are involved with the league, they're involved with combating this too. We got spared those monsoons down in South Florida, they'll eventually creep north because they have been over the years if you look at the rainfall patterns. But us right here, we haven't got a drop for 2 weeks. You know, plants that I bought and put in my plant that said, hey, in your region, full sun, they're dying from the sun. Even if I give them more water, they're getting burnt up. This is our new future. We need to plan for that. If we want to have urban spaces for parks for people to play out in the sun in the daytime, we better provide shade and water. And we need to not make these trails out of asphalt, period. You know, they're just gonna absorb sun all day and radiate it out all night. Not to mention, you know, being a highway for stranger dangers to walk down our street and steal stuff. I've had a bike stolen off my not even my front lawn. It was behind 2 cars in my carport. I mean,
Mr. Sherman.
yeah, I do see the times are, but let's apply some common sense, all right? This is a don't look up situation. Yes, I'm so proud that we are taking care of the ocean, the dunes, and the sand, and the beaches. It's not, rising sea level is not our only crisis. We have a livability crisis. And we're not gonna attract new residents when we have high homeowners insurance, deflating property value, and a livability crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Ken Marsh?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ken Marsh, 2027 Gale Avenue. So we're talking about the grant funding for the urban trails, and I think specifically, really, we're talking about a couple of segments here, and grant funding of about 1.2 million. The handout that I've given you is part of page 47 of the Urban Trails Master Plan, which you were granted this funding from that master plan. This recommendation says that we take the residential segments north and south of downtown and make them one-way while closing the downtown as pedestrian. That is in our urban master plan. That was submitted for our grant funding. So the way I see it, you're going to be voting on the grant funding, but you're also going to be voting on the one-ways on First Street and closing of the downtown. Or you're going to be getting money for something that hasn't been developed yet. I know Jason talked about, well, we need to design it. Well, that's true, but there's a certain parameter of the urban trails that says it's one way north of downtown and one way south of downtown and a closed downtown. And you all have not had any discussion on that, even though it's been brought up over many years, many years. So not only have we not had discussions, none of the residents along this route know anything about this. So I think it's really important that you guys have this discussion tonight as you go talk about this grant funding money. I am a proponent of the urban trails, but as I've said in many meetings, I don't understand. I ride my bike about 8,000 to 10,000 miles a year. I've been all over the United States. What's developed up there doesn't make a lot of sense from the east-west sections. The north-south corridor is where we have a problem moving, whether it's cars or it's people or it's bikes. One south is the superhighway of runners and bikers, and why we're not using that as a priority, I don't know. But as you talk about segment 1A, which is part of the grant funding tonight, you gotta ask the question, and that's what I'm asking tonight, is what is it gonna connect to? You have the yellow going along the ocean, and then you have 1B and 1C. You guys got to ask the question, what is it going to connect to? And you have not had that discussion. So I'm encouraging 2 things. One is somebody up here saying, how's it going to connect? And 2, look at it from an entire segment, a north-south segment. Okay, don't approve it and then say, okay, it's a street to nowhere. That doesn't make any sense. So again, look at it as a segment. And of course, north-south, we also have South Beach Parkway in Penman. We've got a part of Penman, but we don't know where it's going to go from there. But I can tell you as a cyclist, I can go east-west almost all over this town on the roads without any problem, any safe issues. So I just ask you to just kind of reconsider what we're doing here, make it a loop around the city. That's how a bicyclist would do it, how a runner would do it. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. That is the end of public comment on this issue. If we can have a motion.
I move that we accept the Economic Development Initiative Community Project Funding Grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Urban Trails Project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion by council. Ms. Golding?
Mr. Fattis, so some of the statements that were made, I know that you said that we haven't done any design at this point, and I understand that. But concerns about tearing down trees to build the urban trail, is there anything you can provide about that?
Our position is any tree that's taken down will be replaced by another tree. So there's absolutely no plan to remove trees to accommodate the trail without putting them back.
And this is what was submitted for the grant. Mr. Marsh mentioned something about the master plan was submitted for the grant. Does that like tie us to making the downtown one way?
No, I don't know if I understood Mr. Marsh correctly, but I can tell you we did not submit the master plan with this application. So what we're tied to specifically on this grant really is 18th Avenue North, that section, and a section of First Street. We included that corridor 2A as a north-south connected to the school. If we did our community outreach and came back and said there's a better alternative, we can submit that back to the Department of HUD. What we're asking council tonight is approval to go ahead and enter into an agreement with HUD. But what is tied to that agreement are those two corridors specifically.
Okay, so 18th Avenue North and First Street are tied to the grant.
Yes.
Okay, and whatever it will be, asphalt, concrete, whatever, that will be determined as we go forward with the community process and design and all of that?
Yes, ideally the council would approve this and then we would set up a series of community meetings to get the input. We can provide that then to the design consultants for them to come up with an ideal plan.
Okay, I will say, because I live on 18th Avenue North, and it's a very heavily trafficked road because of the schools. And I'm concerned all the time about kids trying to get to and from the schools. And I have a sidewalk in front of my house, and I'm very grateful that I do for that reason, because like Ms. Wendy said, because she lives close to the school too, we see families with strollers and dogs and kids and everything trying to get to and from the schools. So I think it's really important that we focus on 18th and on First Street as well. So I thank you for that.
Mr. Horn?
All right. Are these, so all these areas, are we going and replacing current sidewalks? Or are we putting in a trail in areas? Because again, so you said this is 18th North and then First Street there, but then as I look at this other portion, it says 1A, 2A, 6, and 13, which is, it says on your grand totals for the CPF. So 1A, 2A, 6, and 13. So we're going, so that's not, that counts all the way down to, that's past Beach Boulevard?
Yeah,
2A
12 Ave South, I believe 2A begins.
Okay, so,
Beach Boulevard's by 2A.
so we're doing all of that with this?
Yes, we can, but again, Mr. Horn, to answer your question, we don't know if this is going to be concrete or it's going to be a natural trail. That will all come when we start the design process. And again, that's all hopefully going to happen with substantial community input.
Okay, so conceptually, there could be, actual removal of concrete and replacement with an actual trail with some kind of a surface that is amenable to use by people and long-lasting. I don't think the longevity of anything is going to be as solid as concrete, but at the same time, it doesn't add to our, the concrete, the problems that we have already.
Exactly, Mr. One. I think the direction that the consultants got was what council put, take a holistic rather than a one-size-fits-all approach.
And I will say that I think 18th is a good option, because if you look at it, you've got, as long as we do it on the side of the school, as long as you're not going to, or if you are taking up, and I'm trying to see, I was trying to pull this back up again, because while I've been down that road, see if there's actual sidewalks there. And I believe if there are, we need to use what's there. You mentioned the trees. If we take a tree down, we're going to replace it.
Correct.
How do we replace an oak tree that's been there for 50 years, for 60 years?
I would hope that we would work around that tree. I know that, on 15th Ave North, there are several large oaks that, when talking with a design consultant, they figured a way around them. So obviously, things of that nature we would try to accommodate rather than remove and replace.
But hope and action are two separate things.
Understood.
And again, obviously, everybody in the room here says they don't want any of these large trees coming down, and I fully agree. We need as many of the trees. Sorry, I wrote some other things. If we, again, so this is all tied here. And so if we accept this, grant, and down the road, for whatever reason, either via community input, something happens, changes, this is the only thing that we can do with this. And if something happens and we suddenly can't come to an agreement, we, as the council and the city and the citizens, we say, nope, we've just decided that this is not a good plan and we're not going to do it, for whatever reason. Then what happens to that money? Do we have to give it back? Can we use it somewhere else?
Well, we would only use what we would match. So if we spent 200,000, they would reimburse us for the 200,000.
So say we do a bunch of planning and we get, and we spend $200,000 and whatever, but we decide, okay. I mean, again, conceptually, as I look at this, I'm very receptive. I'm not up here for me, we're not up here for us, we're up here for the citizens. And if the citizens don't like what we're offering, then we need to look at what we're offering. Okay, so there's a sidewalk I thought there was a sidewalk on the side of the school, San Pablo. Okay, so we could maybe address that, maybe make that nicer. So thank you, sir. Is there one on that side? Sorry, we're just over here doing, okay. Oh, there is one on the opposite side of the street as well. That's what I knew there was one on the other side, so.
Mr. Horton, if I can just make sure you understood my last answer, that if we don't spend the 1.2 million, we forfeit the amount that we were granted. Does that make sense?
No, I understand that now, because I wasn't sure if we could pivot somewhere, and that's what I was trying to figure out. And it's specifically for this, we can't use it, it goes away, and okay. Again, conceptually, I know there's a lot of consternation from the public regarding the urban trails. Again, I think the idea of at least if nothing comes out of this and we can't come to an agreement on anything but the one side of 18th in front of the school, where we make it a more accessible area, or we do some areas here, some smaller areas that becomes a much smaller option than what we've outlined here, and it becomes a $500,000 grant and we return the rest of it, so be it. I want to make sure that we are doing what is, number one, right for the beach, number two, right for the citizens, and not trying to force something down people's throats. But at the same time, and I'm just talking out loud, sorry, I've gone for a couple of days, so I've had a lot of time to think about these things. I think I'm okay with accepting a grant. Me personally, I'm okay with accepting a grant, understanding that the next step is then going to the community and looking at that. And the only other thing I want to say is I would make sure that this has been brought up several times. that people have said we need to take care of the sidewalks. And I don't know if that's you or Public Works or the current sidewalks in a lot of areas of the beach, but that's also something that we need to be addressing as well, because I think we have a lot of areas that we can fix and fix. Okay, thank you, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Mr. Jansen?
Yeah, so as the Jacksonville Beach representative on the National League of Cities, I've been following the National East Coast Greenway. I don't know if you're aware of that, Mr. Fatisse, and what that entails. But basically, it's an urban trail that runs from Maine all the way to the Florida Keys. And there's a map on our website that kind of shows where it's been developed and where it hasn't, and where it's been approved and where it hasn't. And right now, it hasn't touched Northeast Florida, quite frankly, but it does exist, and it probably sometime in trajectory in the future will touch our city in one shape, fashion, or form. So incorporating our own urban trail into the East Coast Greenway might be something that would be beneficial to us. Also, when it comes to fighting for our local schools, I think it helps make an argument that if I'm improving a means of access to our schools for our children through an urban trail, I mean, I think it strengthens our argument amongst many other things. So those are some things I'm concerned about. Also, some things that we have talked about in the past when it comes to the urban trails. A gentleman was talking about heat and no shade, but I know that we've talked about, for the edification of our community, of small pocket parks and water stations along the way and shade stops and access not just to the beach, but also to other parks, whether it be Gonzales, whether it be Sunshine Park, or any of our smaller parks. So I think the benefit goes just beyond getting from the west side of the city to the ocean. The urban trail really improves pedestrian access without having to drive your car from the west side of the city to the east side of the city. So just keep in mind about the East Coast Greenway, because that eventually is going to come and touch our city, I think.
Yeah, we have been in talks with them, and we do understand the parameters that would allow it to be called part of the Greenway system. So we'll make sure if we get to construction of that it's constructed to their standards.
Sure, and as a representative, I can always reach out to the National League of Cities and gather up any information that might be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen. Mr. Mesa?
Mr. Batiste, on 18th Ave North, on the north end, which touches the schools, there's a sidewalk and there's the grassy area, and some of it is dirt. During Fletcher games and sometimes parent conference, both sides are people are parking. Now, if the trail was to get built here, I'm assuming some of that parking will be removed, or area would be removed, correct?
Well, I can't really speak to that at this stage, Mr. Mesa. All of that will be considered within the conceptual design, along with the community input. We'll feed that information to the consultants, see what they come back with, and develop the ultimate plan from there.
My concern is just the unintended consequences that we've seen it. I've seen it before, even before I was in council. There was good things that were being passed, but unfortunately, there was circumstances that weren't foreseen. So I just like to think ahead and make sure that if there's something good being done, there's not unintended consequences. And on First Street, I was reading it was from Seagate to 7th Avenue North?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. Mr. Wagner?
Thank you very much for the time. I know it's difficult to be on the hot seat this long, so I really do appreciate it. I know we all do. And I also want to thank everybody who showed up to speak about the urban trails. It's a topic that elicits a lot of emotion, good and not so great, and all of those things have to be considered, and they're important. What I was hoping we might be able to take a minute and do is, because I know not everybody here had a chance to experience the council briefing where we discussed some of the pros and cons of the urban trails. We were discussing and thinking about it for the future. And a couple of things that I walked away from that council briefing, and I appreciate everybody letting me call into it, because I was off on my day job across the country. But we had talked about the fact that, based on the feedback we've been getting, that we're going back to the consultants that are helping us with this, and have challenged them to hear that feedback and rethink and reimagine some of these things, whether it's the type of trail or where the trail should be, et cetera. And I believe that several members of the council also shared, and like Dan just did, around a strong belief that a park and school safety-centric strategy, and probably one that just candidly more of us would use, and it would benefit our community better. So I was hoping you might take a minute and kind of share with us kind of how, while this isn't planned yet, how that will dovetail in and fit with an overall vision for the request to have the consultants go back and kind of look at everything a little bit. And that's kind of really the approach and plan is.
I'll take a stab. I hope I can understand what you're asking, but
I think the key thing we want to share with everybody is that it's not a done deal necessarily. We were hearing feedback, we're going to get more feedback, and it has a real opportunity to.
Absolutely, Mr. Wagner. I'll restate that if council approves this tonight, the next step would be then to set up some community meetings so we can get the input. We will make a concerted effort to reach as many people as possible. The last time we had that, we hung door knockers. We think that's probably the most effective method. Of course, we will use other methods, social media and whatnot. But we do want this to be a community-involved project. And you know, we've heard that there is negative sentiment. We can understand that people don't want to, you know, lose their privacy that they have in their backyard or front yard. But we believe that overarching that it's more favorable to do this than not to do it. But let's do it in a way that, you know, we satisfy the many.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, you know, for us to reinforce it with folks, because it's easy to get caught up in some of the details, but
Yeah.
I think strategically we are looking at this to create a vision to benefit as many people as we can, based on the fact that we've gotten a lot of feedback.
That's exactly our objective, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Ms. Golding?
Just one quick follow-up. As the council person who lives closest to the 18th Avenue North segment that you're talking about, that would be funded by this grant, I also wanted to add that, so 13 actually goes north of 18th Avenue to Seagate, and right now, that's being used by people all the time. Kids and anybody else who lives in the neighborhood who want to get from 18th to Seagate, and it's nice and wide, and I think it'd be a real shame if we don't do something to put in a path there, at least a safe path for people to get from 18th to Seagate. So I'm really glad to see that that's part of it, because ultimately it does provide a way for the kids at Fletcher to get, you know, to get across to 18th and vice versa. Again, safety, it's a safety thing there, and convenience too. And I would just reiterate from what I've heard you say, the funding we get will be based on what we decide to do. And if we choose to not do some segments, then and we don't spend any money to do those segments, then we won't get grant funding, matching grant funding to do those segments, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then I would just say that as far as community involvement goes, it's really important that we do everything we can to make sure that we are not just reaching out to people who are right there along the trail, but people in the area, because there are people in the area who will either, you know, we think would benefit from the trail, and we would like to know how, you know, have their involvement as well.
Yes.
Just while we're on that topic, I was going to add, if we could make sure to include the school administrators, but more importantly than that, probably the PTAs and the quite well organized right now, unfortunately. But they're the ones that are really going to be using it and are really going to know the impact on that whole school kind of complex area. So I think they'll be excited to hear about it, but I think their feedback and input would be valuable. Mr. Sutton.
Thanks, Jason, for pushing this through and getting it, because I think it's great, and I would certainly be in favor of us moving forward. I think the area around San Pablo and Fletcher is key, as Ms. Golding has said, and I'm in favor of the trail in general, especially under the premise that, you know, the routing and the surface and, you know, getting rid of trees or not, all those sorts of things are flexible, and I think everybody for the most part feels the same way. So I think it's a no-brainer that we take it, especially given all of the criteria that you've laid out, that if we don't use it, then we'll just lose it, and that's fine too.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Mr. Mesa, revisit?
Yes, just to revisit, Councilmember Mr. Horn brought it up on the sidewalks, and I think we should take a look at it on the sidewalks. I know I ride my bike on Wednesdays all over the beach. It's my me time. It's my decompression time to reflect on everything, and I like to ride all over the beach. And some sidewalks do need some TLC and for safety purposes as well. That's it. Thank you.
It's like a Christmas tree right here. All the lights came on. Mr. Horn?
And I just want to say to everybody who came here tonight, thank you for being involved. Thank you for, you know, make sure, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, everybody come out, send us emails, every single one of them. I try to respond, haven't been able to, but please stay involved. And if we're not doing something right, let us know. I know you guys are doing it, so I appreciate you.
Mr. Sutton?
I just wanted to mention, I forgot to, the comments that Mr. Marsh made, I think are valid, and I would encourage all of us to continue to think about First Street as it relates to the urban trail and what we want that to be, and how we, from a safety and the whole downtown area, what we want that to look like, and what we envision there, because pedestrian walkability and usability and the flow of traffic and all of that, I think, will be key for that to be successful. And thank you, Mr. Marsh, for bringing that up.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Anybody else? It sounds like we all have a lot of the same thoughts and feelings on this matter, so I just wanted to echo the congratulations on getting this federal grant. It is our money. Those are our tax dollars at work, so it's nice when we can pull them back into our community and put them to work on a project like this that I think with careful planning and a lot of community input is going to be a win-win, especially for those that are really heavily utilizing that area. Seeing no other comments, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Horn?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutton?
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the ordinance. Ms. Ireland, do you want to do a staff report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Heather Ireland, Planning and Development Department. This request, ordinance 8217, is for the abandonment of an easement that runs east-west. Address is 9017 7th Avenue South, as you can see on the map that's in your packets. The abandonment of the easement would be from the manhole, which is the red dot kind of in the center there, to the east. So there are no utilities in this easement. There have not been for some time, and the property owner wants to just kind of clean up their deed and clean up the survey. So they're requesting easement abandonment because it is no longer needed, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Ireland. Madam Clerk, will you read the ordinance by title, please?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, vacating, discontinuing, abandoning, and closing the eastern 102 feet of a certain 12-foot wide easement running in an easterly and westerly direction through that certain property located in the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, known as Block 70, Oceanside Park Subdivision, according to the plat book thereof, recorded in Plat Book 8, page 13 of the current public records of Duval County, Florida, providing for legislative findings, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, scrivener's errors, recording and non-codification, and an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This ordinance is before the council for a public hearing and consideration on its first reading. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2024-8217. We do have one speaker card, William Gibbs, who is representing, he's the agent for the applicant. Would you like to address the council or wait until we have questions? It's up to you. Come on up.
And yeah, I just wanted to thank Ms. Ireland and staff for their report, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Would anyone else like to speak in favor or in opposition to this ordinance? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. May I have a motion?
I move that we approve ordinance number 2024-8217 on the first reading, vacating a 12-foot wide by 102-foot long easement running in an east-west direction through Block 70 of the Oceanside Park plat, and schedule a second reading for July 15th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions by council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Warren?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutton?
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.